Well, good morning. This is Plant Smart Living with Farmer Fred. So thankful you could join me here this morning. It's a beautiful day here in September, and it's cooling down here because the fall's coming ahead of us, and so we're just thankful to be in the garden. It's always fun being out here in the garden. And I thought this morning what I would do is share some tips and ideas on how you can build your own garden trellises and arbors, or even trellises you can walk through, or trellises that you can grow a vine up through. What you see here on my property are the different trellises, my raised planter beds. You may be surprised to learn this, but I'm not a computer person. I really don't. I like the computer, it has its advantages, but most of what you see, my trellises and my outdoor garden beds, I've designed on a napkin at Henning's nearby. It's a cafe place where I have my Ticino in the morning. But I've used napkins through the years because you can take your time and come up with different plans and ideas. And if you don't like that, you could scratch your napkin and start over. And so, you know, we like to emphasize smart living here, and so it takes a while to come up with a good plan. It may take a week or two or even longer. I usually run my ideas and thoughts through ask my friend or my wife to get different ideas, and so the napkins have worked really well for me. My plans certainly have changed from designing one arbor or one trellis. In the beginning I'd come up with ideas, but over a period of a couple weeks, you know, I've seen drastic changes in my plan. So the napkins may be a good idea, or even a piece of paper that you could just draw up your ideas. But anyhow, I just wanted to take a few minutes and just show you some of the trellises that I've built in the past. And so right behind me I have this one corner trellis here that I built that a couple years ago. We used to have a tall tree planted there, and it just got a bit overwhelming, and so we took that out. And so I planted a clematis vine here last spring, and so this is its second year. It's gotten its feet in the ground. Earlier in the spring and earlier in the summer had some lovely flowers on it. You can still see one right there. It's kind of withering away, but it's been a hot last couple weeks, and yeah, I need to make sure I keep this trellis plant here watered a lot. But anyhow, this trellis is just constructed of some 2x4s. You can see I got a couple vertical support 2x4s there, and on my table saw down in my workshop I ripped down some cedar that I had some 1x10 cedar. I ripped down to about 1.25 inch strips, and then just screwed that onto the 2x4 frame. And then I have a 2x6 header up top with some 2x4 roof pieces that just have some curved sides on it, or ends on it, to give it some nice grace. And so this is one idea that if you have a corner and you wanted to add a little bit of grace and interest to the corner there, that would be a nice idea. And so let's spin around here. Again, let's talk about this trellis here. This is a walk-through trellis that's easy to build. These are good beginner projects for homeowners. They're really not that complicated. Basic construction. I mean, you could even borrow tools if you don't have any, or even maybe you know of a friend or neighbor that might be able to help construct this for you. But this is built out of 2x4s on the ends, and then I have a horizontal 2x4 on the bottom. Again, with the same 1.25 inch pieces of cedar you can see here that I ripped down here on my table saw. And then I made some corner brackets out of 2x4s here. I put a nice curve on them. I used my bandsaw for that. And then I bolted the top corners together with some bolts to help secure it. You can see the bolts up there on the corner. And then I painted it white. My wife and I were debating on what color to paint it, but we thought the white made it pop in color. And we also have here a rose vine growing up here on this side, and then also on this side then I have a clematis. We planted that this spring. So it takes a good 2 years for that to get its feet on the ground. Let's just spin around here. I see a flower still here on this one. But anyhow, last spring we had the morning glory growing up this trellis. I don't know if you've seen my video. Beware of the morning glory vine. It might be a good video for you to watch if you hadn't watched it. But the morning glory vines, they're beautiful flowers. But this is still a remnant. You see their seeds. And there's another little plant there. Anyhow, in the spring and early summer, we just had, the whole ground was carpeted by morning glory plants wanting to pop through the mulch. Because what happened is last fall I tore the morning glory vine off, and the seeds must have gone everywhere. In fact, we even have one growing over here in our cactus plant here. You can see the flower. My wife even had a pot inside and had one growing out of it. I think it's still probably doing that, but you can see it just started growing here out of our cactus. They are beautiful plants, there's no question, but if those seeds land in the soil, they'll grow everywhere and they strangle out everything. So we've opted not to grow the morning glory vines anymore. Like I said, we grew the clematis and then also that climbing rose. In fact, we planted these rose bushes here this spring and they're doing really well. This is actually the first time we've had our rose bushes. And so let's take a walk over here and I'll show you the other trellis. I actually planted this one, I built this one last springtime. It's always fun to have trellises and you can walk under them. I know there's always something about walking under a trellis that I've always liked. And I don't know if you've seen my early videos, but this is Jungle, my indeterminate sun gold tomato plant, or cherry tomatoes. But this thing has just taken off here, growing up the trellis. You can also see I have some morning glories growing up there again. I didn't even plant those this year, but you can just see how beautiful they are in color. But anyhow, this arbor here, it looks like I built it out of some 2x3s I had. These vertical 2x3s. You could certainly use 2x4s. And I just put an angle on it so you could walk under it. And some of those 1x1s here that are about an inch and a quarter wide, and I just ripped them down. And I gave this dark brown stain like I did my other outdoor structure. And so this would be another idea. I put an angle or peak roof on this just to change things up a little bit. And I like the brown on some of my outdoor structures because it kind of represents the color of the bark on your trees. And so this has worked real well for growing up the cherry tomato. I would always recommend people to try the sun gold cherry tomatoes. They're just so delicious, and just let them grow. Don't prune back the suckers or nip the suckers. Let them do their thing. Let nature take its course. But these are 2 tomato plants that I grew in the spring. They cost me $1.25 for each plant, and I just can't eat these tomatoes quick enough. And they're just so delicious. They're like nuggets of sweetness on the vine, and so I would really encourage you to do that. I had to eat one I couldn't resist. So anyhow, this arbor here, again, I built this about 2 years ago. This whole area here, as a matter of fact, was just all woods at one time and weeds. You know, we own 10 acres here, and I've slowly developed it over the years. But you know, our original garden that I walked past earlier was 18 foot by 30. Here I have these are 4 by 32 foot, and there's 4 8-foot sections here. And so this arbor here, I constructed out of 4x4s on the corners, and then these are dog ear fence slats that I use. right here, and painted everything brown. I don't know if you've seen earlier, I just did a video yesterday on how I constructed my vegetable basket so I could put my healthy quotes on that. And so that was part of the shelf that I had screwed to the side of the shower there. And so on the side of the arbor here I have another trellis, and you can see the morning glory from last year. They just grew on their own. Again, they are a beautiful flower. But anyhow, this year I opted to grow my canna lilies. On the end I have a little bed here that's about 2 foot by 6 foot that I fill with compost. I use compost amended with topsoil. My compost is made out of leaf mulch. I get that from Barnside Compost nearby. But this is a gazebo multi-purpose function area here. I built this workbench. It's about 3 foot by 8 foot, and it's supported by 2x4 legs there on the corner with you can see a 2x6 rail there to support it horizontally. And then on the top deck board I used, this is 5/4 decking here, 5/4 by 6 decking. It's about 1 inch by 5.5, and then I screwed down the deck boards there with different outdoor screws. But up on the corners I put some ornamental brackets just to add a little bit of grace and interest to the structure. Up on the top roof, those are 1x4s. They're about 3 inches wide, 3/4 inches thick, and those are all made out of treated lumber. In fact, the whole arbor here is treated lumber that I made this out of. Again, simple construction. I anchored the corner posts in concrete. You know, you'd want to build that according to local codes, or dig it deep enough so it's below the frost line. Now under my workbench here I have it's about 100-gallon tub that in the spring I fill that with water, and then I put a pump in there to water my the vegetables in the early spring, because it's still freezing outside, and my piping system I don't want to fill with water yet. So I use that tub for various purposes throughout the summer. But here on the floor here I also use the 5/4 by 6 decking. I put a light stain on that. And let me come around here so we could take a look. But I love the arbors, just being able to sit outside in your garden under the arbor, get some shade. Actually, on the end of the arbor here I have a trumpet vine growing up this one. Again, we had a morning glory vine growing up there last year, but we opted not to plant that this year again because they grow everywhere. And then I just planted these elephant ear bulbs to give it a tropical look. And then come frost, we'll just cut the plants down and put the bulbs down in the basement for next spring. So I would encourage you to plant these elephant ears. They're a beautiful plant. There's some vinca flowers in the foreground there with boulders on the edges. So another thing I would encourage you to think about using is boulders. We love boulders in our garden. I got probably like 50 ton of those 20 years ago and used them throughout the property. But anyhow, also another unique thing about this outdoor arbor is I have an outdoor shower. I use this timer switch to turn my pump on. I also use that as an irrigation system throughout my garden. But when I built this, I always loved outdoor showers. Being down in the seashore, you have outdoor showers to wash the sand off. But I thought, well, I'm going to build me an outdoor shower one way or the other. And so I ended up building this outdoor shower out here. There's a shelf that I keep items stored on, and then I also use that barrel for different purposes. But right here I'm going to turn on this valve here. But I also have my indeterminate tomato plant growing in here, which is interesting. I can actually eat some of these cherry tomatoes while I'm taking a shower. But I'm going to turn the shower on for you so you can take a look. Because again, this is another idea that I would really encourage you to do in your garden. So, you know, when you're out working in your garden, you're nice and hot and filthy dirty. I just love coming out here. Now this water comes from our pond, which is spring fed, so it's all spring water. When I'm done jogging at the end of the day too, I also come in here and take a shower. And so I just love this outdoor shower. It's not really hard to build. I used 1/2-inch PVC piping for this that you just glue and cut the fittings. So it's really easy to construct if you're handy. And so anyhow, I hope you've enjoyed our tour here of my different trellises and this one, Arbor. I would encourage you to think about maybe building some for your own garden. And so I just want to thank you for joining me today. This is Plant Smart Living with Farmer Fred.